Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's first session of our localization webinar series. My name is Emmy, and I'm the product marketing manager at Tarjama. I'm responsible for the go-to-market strategy for all our tech products, our portfolio of language technologies, and how we market them in the international market. So before we get started, let's just give a minute or so for other people to join in. And just so you know, this webinar is recorded. It will be available on our LinkedIn page right after this session where you can access it. And we'll also be sharing a lot of material throughout the webinar, so you can always download throughout the session or from the link on our LinkedIn page. Also, you can submit your questions in the comment section below. So feel free to just throw out your questions there, and our speakers will be able to answer them towards the end, where we'll have a Q&A session. So I'm just waiting like just 30 more seconds for even more people to join in, and then we can jump right in. Okay, so thank you all for joining in. Today's topic is around localization strategy made simple. What we want to do, like our goal here with this webinar, is to really simplify the process of setting a localization strategy and give you practical and simple approaches that you can apply right after the webinar. So with our speakers today, they'll bring in insights and best practices and just steps on how you can implement a successful localization strategy that helps your company grow and globalize. So if we can go, we'll go over the agenda now. We'll first start off by going through just an introduction of our speakers, and then we'll speak briefly about the importance of localization and how it's increasing in today's digitalized world. Then we'll go into really the core of this webinar, really, on how to build a solid localization strategy that helps you grow. And we'll discuss this question of, how do I decide between partnering with an LSP, or should I go with a freelancer, or build my own in-house team? Which one is right for me and my company? And we'll end off our discussion with just some common mistakes and challenges of localization, the most common ones that our speakers see in their professions. And of course, at the end, we'll have the Q&A session where you can again, feel free to put in your questions in the chat at the bottom, and we'll go over them towards the end. So to our speakers, I've introduced myself, and with us on the call as well is Noor Hussein and Mahmoud Abdelaziz. I'll give you guys a brief minute or so to introduce yourself.
Thank you very much, Emmy. Good evening, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Noor Hussein. I look after growth in Tarjama, and I work very closely with a lot of our customers to make sure that we can help them grow their business, expand it into different geographies, and deliver a more effective go-to-market strategy through localization and through smart technologies. And today I'm excited to be joined by my colleague Mahmoud and share with you a bit of insights from what we see from dealing with the various customers and various professionals in different industries. Mahmoud, over to you.
Thank you, Noor. Thank you, Emmy. Hello, everyone. My name is Mahmoud Abdelaziz. I have been with the Tarjama family for over 5 years, working in the business development and consultancy department. I assist companies and organizations in setting up and executing their localization strategies by providing them with the correct solutions or customized solutions and consultations. Very excited to be here and looking forward to all of your questions throughout our session.
Thank you so much, Noor and Mahmoud. I'm very excited to hear what you have to say. So yeah, before we jump into our discussion with Noor and Mahmoud, I actually came across this really interesting study, and it asked global companies, so what do you consider is the most important method when you're expanding to new markets? And interestingly, but like not surprisingly, honestly, like content localization was the third most important method. So I found this study pretty exciting and interesting, but when I looked deep into it, I found like, okay, so the first two are social media and international advertising. And as me coming from a marketing background and profession, I actually use localization. It's very intertwined in social media and advertising. So when us as a team, we're working on blogging, we're working on social media campaigns or digital advertising, we're always thinking like in the middle, at the core of our work is how can we localize these different marketing touch points? So it is the third over here, but how I see it is that those three first priorities are actually at the core of them is localization. So we're seeing, this huge trend with global companies really prioritizing and investing in localization because it's the method to grow and expand into new markets.
It's more cost effective as well, Emir, right?
True. Yeah, you're gonna capture your prospects with higher potential. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, you don't have to do a lot of running cost compared to social media. What you'd spend in advertising in a month, you're likely to spend it once a year in localization.
100%, and it's even more important than physical storefronts, like with stores that actually sell products.
Who has physical storefronts
at the bottom there
now?
Yeah, e-commerce. Go e-commerce. So yeah, this was very interesting, and I'd like to hear from you, Noor, a bit. Like, why do you think is localization becoming so important and such a priority with companies, especially in recent years or the past decade or even the past few years with COVID?
I mean, consumer behavior is basically changing. This is the most important part. Everything that companies and organizations have been trying to do for the past decades is to always try to understand how is consumer behaving, and then accordingly try to reach the consumer where they are. With COVID, and even without COVID as well, consumers now expect their content to be localized. They expect it to be personalized. They expect it to be a bit more tailored to them. And when you look at it, users mostly browse content in their native language. And I know that there are some statistics around that. When you're browsing content in your native language, you're also more likely to purchase content that is available in your native language. There's that element of trust for a brand that communicates to me in my native language. But also the changes in consumer habits and behaviors are causing companies to try to focus heavily on localization because of what you also were mentioning earlier. If I'm an e-commerce provider, I need to make sure that my content is being localized and is being available in multiple languages. Even business to business or B2B companies are realizing that offering my customers or offering my prospect clients information, data, case studies, etc., that is available in their native language gives them that, gives me that credibility that I'm able to reach to them in their own markets. And there's some great figures and numbers that support this as well. We know that 60% of international buyers, they really rarely or never buy a product that is not in their native language. And this is not, it may not apply to a lot of people that are currently attending the webinar who might be bilingual as well. It may not apply to someone who's purchasing a coding software course or someone who's purchasing an advanced HR platform, but it definitely applies for a 60, 70-year-old, male or female in Sudan who wants to apply cooking, to buy cooking equipment, or who wants to buy, household products as well. These kind of information means that if you're not offering your content in multiple language, you're by default excluding a huge portion of your buying population. And we can see this over the past years as well. Consumers who also are able to find information in their own language have found out that this is more important for them than price, for example. If I'm able to find...
That's crazy. Like, it's unbelievable, but wow, it really speaks to the importance of this. Like,
I mean, think about it. If you're going into an e-commerce platform or an online store and you're looking to purchase something and the description of it is in English, but the entire, or the title is in English, but the entire content is in Mandarin, for example. How are you going to have that confidence that you're buying the right product? You're probably going to say, this looks great, but I need to make sure that I can understand what is being there. But also with the fact that 71% of consumers spend almost all of their time on websites in their own language, we're starting to see now a non-English internet. I don't know if you recall, Emmy, I'm sure Mahmoud would, there was a time where the internet was English. I mean, it still is predominantly in English, but if you didn't speak English, you couldn't even use computers. That was a time. Right now, you can completely browse internet in your native language. You can completely, it is expected now. When I go in on a website and I don't see it available in multiple languages, I immediately associate this organization with, they're probably a small size business. Can't really expect them to be that global if they're not using localization.
Yeah, makes absolute sense. Yep.
You using the word localization, Noor, actually, I think brings it right home, because if you consider the Arabian region and specifically the Middle East, when was the last time you actually used modern standard Arabic or standard Arabic, Fusha, in other words? It most probably back when you were at school, or if you're doing something official in front of TV, but it's definitely not your language when you're shopping for things or when you're searching for a specific service over the internet. Right now, with companies going towards localization, it is so much easier to reach out to your consumer using their own language. So it doesn't matter if you're speaking, I don't know, if you're from Lebanon versus you being from the GCC, it doesn't matter. You're going to be able to find the content based on your way of speaking, your way of thinking, even at the same time.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with that. Like with the menus, if any of you have heard of it, it's a very Egyptian app. And their customer service actually really caught my attention because they speak very Egyptian Arabic. So I feel like I'm talking to a person. It's not a robot. So dialects are like, very makes things conversations very personal when they're used, especially in the Arabic language. It makes a whole big difference, and it makes me feel like a human to human type, even though it's a robot.
Like you're understood. As if you're understood.
Yeah.
And I think, Emmy, you would also relate a lot to this. Marketing teams always look at localization as this is the responsibility of the translation department. This is something that we have to do at the last stage. However, they're trying to constantly increase their engagement on social media. Right? I mean, you obviously understand this with the entire marketing team. Engagement is a very important part.
Absolutely.
And every business that realized that we can post content in a localized dialect or in a localized language is more likely to receive engagement from their users or from online readers as well. I mean, if you think of global brands like Coca-Cola or so, 10 years, 15 years ago, they would have a single social media page in English. Then, later on, they would realize we should probably have regional pages covering Arabic, French, Spanish, some of the most common languages. And now they'll have a page for Egypt, a page for Jordan, a page for Lebanon, because they understand it's not just about the dialect anymore or the language. It's also about the nuances. It's also about saying or posting something that only a person in Saudi Arabia will be able to relate to. And thus they will feel
connection, that really.
Exactly.
And connection creates like recurring customers. Like when I feel like this brand connects with me, I'm going to come back to it. So yeah, that's, yeah. So other like then creating engagement and connection and just, doing what the consumer is expecting of us, like with your meetings with a lot of companies from different industries, what are the main drivers that cause companies to localize, like in business terms or ROI type of drivers?
I mean, bottom line always comes to increasing revenue. Yeah, exactly.
Everybody wants money.
It's not about, at the end of the day, every organization respects its products and services and is confident that they're offering value. But if that value isn't translating to revenue, then what are we trying to do? But I'm sure Mahmoud also sees this quite a lot because he's constantly engaging with customers, and the hardest part for them is to try to measure the ROI and how fast can we go to market, because every day you're delaying is a day that you're not getting additional revenue, which is a day that you're slowing down your growth as well.
Absolutely.
And I think
100%.
Mahmoud also, you'd probably have a lot of experience engaging on go-to-market approaches or effectiveness of like the drivers for localization.
Yes, the first thing that you notice whenever you're sitting with a client that doesn't have, let's say, localization expertise or hasn't moved into localization yet is that their first question is, how do we do it? Where are we supposed to start? So there are many questions that they don't see the end goal. They can't physically understand when will the money start coming in. And that is the biggest challenge most probably the companies have. But when you place it in the same way you just mentioned it, we believe that everybody has to start localizing. And that's mainly because of the third point, which is a more effective go-to-market approach. If you're an e-commerce company, if you're a service provider, like we chatted at the start, you need to speak your client's language. You need to show them that you understand them. I've got what you need, so come buy it from here or come take it from my shop. And this specific approach has so many ways it can be involved, and most of them, and I'm pretty sure Emmy can relate to this, most of them are really related to the marketing or Marcom departments and the project management that is handling those products or services. Because the faster you go and the faster you go to market, you need to make sure that you don't have to fix anything or republish anything. So it has to be perfect. It has to be the right tone so that when I drop it in the market, it starts selling right away, rather than, oops, let us refix this or let us republish that. So localizing your content in the proper way would help you start selling faster. And that is pretty much the goal after localization.
Yeah. I want to actually just take a step back. Like, let's just take a step back. We get the drivers, we get how important localization is. But honestly, me before I joined Tarjama, I used the word translation and localization interchangeably. Like before joining an LSP, like, man, they're kind of like potato. So can you kind of just take us through what is the difference between translation and a localization strategy? Like,
let me take this one, Noor. Look, I mean, I've heard this question. I've heard this question at least, I don't know, 100 times per month. The biggest challenge for everybody within this region and the people, again, who don't understand the difference between localization or don't understand the localization strategy in general, is that they often confuse localization with translation, just like you said, potato. But what they don't understand is that it's a complete different thing, because localization in this aspect is the entire process of adapting a product or a content to a specific market and a specific location of the market. So what would happen is, yes, translation is part of your localization process, but so is content creation, so is copywriting, so is modifying your graphics and designs to properly display your products or your services towards that market. Converting, as simple as converting your local currencies and units of measurement, for example, to that market. So if you bring in a company from the US and they start selling you, I don't know, let's say tables or designs, and they use feet as the first element or the first unit of measurement, there's no way for you to understand what it means, or you're going to end up bouncing to another website just to do a calculation for it. So all of these combined are what brings in the localization strategy. So once more, content is a major part of it, but it's not only the content, it's the way of thinking, it's the way of delivering your product to the market, it's you understanding your client, your market, your persona. Who am I selling this to? Am I selling this to, like Noor mentioned at in the beginning, to the 60, 70-year-old person who's looking to purchase house equipment, or are you going after the young entrepreneurs who are aiming to expand their business? So this is the first thing that we need to identify, and we need to make sure that we understand when we place in a localization strategy, is that it's not only the content that you're fixing, you're really changing the whole approach.
Yeah, and it's not just the content team or the whatever team is responsible for content. I feel like it's a more holistic approach where you're involving everyone from different departments. So the products team is involved, marketing, of course, the C-levels, the technology, and the translation, of course. But it's like the whole company is kind of aligned on one goal towards that localization strategy.
Yeah, but pretty much. So in other words, let's say anyone who's trying to reach to global audience or regional audience, they need and should consider their localization as well as the translation and content within it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think I always think of localization as a how. It's one of the ways on how to grow. And just as you showed, Emmy, social media is a way, advertisement is a way, localization is a way. Translation is what. It's one of the ways on what to do to deliver on that how. So as Mahmoud said, you can localize a piece of content, you can localize an image, or you can localize an entire experience, right? Saying, I don't want my customers to do it in feet, I want them to do it in meters, because that's what's going to happen. So it's a lot more comprehensive than that. And I think one of the triggers for us having to open up the topic of the localization strategy was exactly that. We see and engage with a lot of localization managers who have a lot of experience in translation, but they are taking just the latter end of the process. They're just focusing a bit more on, I'm a localization manager, I need to do translation, and not knowing that there's actually a lot of huge value that we can offer and provide to the business if we put together something that's a little bit, it's fairly simple, but it's a bit more comprehensive than just translation.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, localization is the how. So having said that, how do you start your localization strategy, since you mentioned nice coincidence?
Well, you can call me anytime.
That's definitely one of the reasons why we wanted to share this with our audience today. A lot of times what Mahmoud and what our team does is we advise companies really on what is the best way for them to deliver or sometimes even create a localization strategy. For us, it's fairly simple. There's 4 stages, and you can choose to go in depth or in brief as much as you want per each stage. But the first one, you have to start by doing a bit of research. It saddens us a lot of times when we have localization managers or heads of translators who just send content and they just want it translated, and then they ship it back to their stakeholders because they feel that they have no interest or contribution in understanding the product, understanding the product positioning, understanding the customer persona, and the content, touch points. Where is this content going? Is this content going online? Is this content going on a printed paper? Is this a banner? Is this website content? Is this app? And when you understand that, it'll help us, first of all, because a lot of times customers are saying, but that's not what I wanted. This isn't exactly the service that I needed. And it's like, well, we've asked you to make sure that this is clear, but that wasn't part of the scope. Once you get that understanding, and it's not a comprehensive process. I mean, there are templates that we can offer and support. It's a fairly simple process of 1 page. Then you can go a little bit more towards the planning part. And this is trying to understand a bit more about your market nature or your market needs, your content priorities itself. So if I'm going to work on my product and I understand that I'm selling an e-learning course, for example, or I want to localize to improve my engagement on social media, then I want to know what my market nature is and what are my needs. And accordingly, what priorities do I need to have? So some customers who wish to expand to the Middle East, for example, the first thing they come up with is we want to translate our entire website. And a lot of times we advise them that you don't necessarily need to do that. Perhaps you can start with a landing page and then a couple of consistent blog, because the difference between having a localization strategy is understanding that I'm not just going to translate. I'm going to have the concept of continuous localization. I need to make sure that I'm continuously available, because it'll just look so odd if I post a blog in Turkish or in Spanish and then that's it. I'm done. I've just wasted time and I've wasted effort as well. And you know this quite a lot.
Yeah. With the content priorities, do you usually recommend that companies prioritize the pages, if we're talking about landing pages or whatever content that brings them most ROI, or how do we prioritize there?
So we can, there are multiple ways that you can look at it. First, and the easiest one is looking at your customer experience. So if I'm a business-to-business company, what touch points is your customer going to see? They're going to land on your website, they're going to speak to my chat bot, and then they're going to send and fill in a form. And then my agents might have to understand their form in using machine translation, for example, because they want to quickly understand what is the message that is being sent there. And then I need to send them a flyer and a proposal. And then I perhaps need to, and looking at the entire process, which means that exactly, all the way through, my platform needs to be completely localized. I'm going to offer my platform in this language as well. Once this is done, you start into volume. That will give you a good idea. That's a very important part. Don't start your localization process with, I need to translate this. This is, 50,000 words. Can you please do it? Understand it's in your best interest to forecast your entire volume, because you're going to get a better service and you're going to be able to better estimate and budget as well. When you're, Mahmoud,
I wanted to add something to that, because one more point, if it's right. Another thing that you need to keep in mind is the consistency of it, not only the size. If I'm going to put it in a very, and I always use this example with my partners and clients, it's pretty much like going to the gym. If you go to the gym today, you're not going to lose your kilos or buff up within a week or two. You literally need to go at least 3 to 4 times a week for the next 6 months for you to start seeing those results. So you have to be consistent. You have to be focused on that strategy for it to work. Other than that, just doing a great website and a great, even multiple landing pages, in my opinion, from the market, from the actual market, it doesn't only help you. That doesn't help. It's a start, but you have to maintain the consistency of it, and you have to keep on. You have to keep on enhancing your content. Even if you wrote your website once, there's no problem in visiting it again in 3 or 4 months, and then just doing quick revamps to fix these wordings or this style or this approach. And you have to keep on maintaining it. And the best example I can give you is think about life before COVID and post-COVID. Wow. The amount of content that changed in those 2 years, if you were not up to your game and if you were not constantly updating your content and making sure your strategy is in place, you're not going to be on the screen anymore. You're not going to be visible to other people.
Yeah, you'll be outdated.
I think it's Mahmoud, that's a brilliant point, because planning properly will also help you as a localization manager or translator for a business build a case with your organization, so that at the implementation stage, you're not overwhelmed. I mean, the number of translators, heads of localization we deal with who have no time to breathe. They have no time, because as they say, you have a leak in the ceiling and you're busy wiping the floor. So they've misplanned the project, and then they went straight into implementation. And then suddenly they're realizing that on a daily basis, they get 50, 60,000 words that they need to translate, but they thought that they can handle it, or they thought that they could work with a freelancer, or they planned it and hired a couple of team members and then 2 resign. So making sure you plan to understand that you're about to embark on a journey is fairly important, which is also good to take it into the next stage of implementation. This is where you need to start looking at translation technologies. I mean, it's 2021. Let's start looking at systems and tools to help us automate and run our process faster. Think of the handoff process. A lot of times it's those little things that you don't think of it. How am I sharing my content with my supplier? You start thinking, I'm gonna translate my website, or I'm gonna translate the e-learning course. Fantastic idea, excellent. Dear translator, go. How are we going to get the data? Bring in the tech team. We're 2 months behind. What about we build an API? And finally is reporting. I mean, at the end of the day, we also need to showcase to our management, why is this going well? What's the progress? And a lot of times when you're looking for a translation service, you get a translation service. That's what you're going to get. When you're looking for a localization partner, you should be looking at what reports do I want to see. I want to make sure on a weekly basis I'm following certain metrics and milestones. And then the last and definitely not least is optimization. What you want to do is you want to take off, and then you want to see, how can I navigate this process and improve it? How do I want to do any testing for softwares? If I want to do user experience testing, but also you have a partner, they can advise you on using your translation memories, improving your setup. Maybe your volume increases, maybe your volume decreases. How do I make sure that I'm not overspending, I'm not underspending, etc., etc.?
Yeah, and I would really hammer on that optimization stage. Like with our marketing content, whenever we're localizing, for example, for the KSA market, a landing page, we would normally do it, optimize it 3-4 times until it's like, okay, this is getting the KPI, it's meeting the KPIs that we want. Just watching the user experience through the page, the clicks, the leads, the heat map, how customers or leads are interacting with that localized content, it really helps you optimize and reach your goal at the end. So yeah,
but if you maintain it 6 months down the road, you're going to start launching the landing page only once, because you've been learning from your experience over, again, consistency.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know this, Mahmoud sees this quite a lot. And that would be my direction and my recommendation. Just think long term. You need to start understanding that this is something that is going to continue to happen. So unfortunately, a lot of the challenges that we see, particularly in the Middle East, because the localization market in the Middle East is slightly behind its peers in Europe or North America, etc., is companies and organizations are still looking at a translation. I want the lowest service, and I want the lowest cost, and I want the fastest delivery, and I want the highest quality. So as they say, everyone wants to go to heaven, but no one wants to die. So no one is willing to try to invest a little bit to make sure that this year I'm spending $1. Next year, I'm going to spend $50 for the same quality and more content. The following year, I'm not even going to spend anything because I've saved so much in investing in the right technology or the right tools.
Yeah. And so when would you say are the most common stage or stages that companies start to come to you for advice or consultation? Noor or Mahmoud, either or.
You've got the graph quite right there. It is planning and implementation. Other than the challenge that not everybody understands localization 100%, choosing your localization provider or consultant can really seem intimidating because you're not quite there. Am I looking for the cheap translation? Or am I looking for the consultancy? You have multiple questions that keep on crossing your mind, and you keep on worrying of the unknown because you don't know what's going to happen in 6 months. You don't know if you're going to spend this money. So when you get to the planning stage and you need to understand when am I going to start seeing results and how am I going to see those results is exactly when you need somebody to step in and let you and assist you in that pretty much challenge. Because once you've started, everything will become, and again, you're the expert here, all marketing departments have aggressive timelines. They want everything done yesterday. They want everything to be done perfectly. And that's just not how it's done. You need to start somewhere and you need to gradually get there. You need to understand where are we now? Where is our position in the market? What do I need to do to enter a different market? So definitely at the stage of the planning, having your localization partner sitting with you at the table can really be helpful because the localization and the localization service provider, or we can relate to them as LSPs, have seen it before and have assisted other companies in doing it before. So they can literally get you off on the right foot and telling you that's the right way to aim. Now, you as a client, it's up to you how you want to proceed, but at least you've got the input from, let's call them the industry experts at that point. When it comes,
to add to what you're saying, Mahmoud, I completely agree. I would add a small caveat. If you're already in a particular region, then absolutely right. Then you'll have to plan and implement. So if you're launching a new product and you want this product localized, then great. If you're entering an entirely new market, it might make sense to involve someone a bit on the research side to give you a bit more of content advisory or something along these lines.
Yep, I agree with that. It makes perfect sense. And based on the slide that you have, implementation is pretty much the bread and butter of any LSP. That's where we start executing that strategy. That's where we start executing that plan to make sure that you reach your goal. Now, I would have added optimization as well. So pretty much you could consult your LSP in any of those stages, but where we heavily can help are both stages that are in the middle. Because at the optimization stage, when you call me in, Emmy, to ask me why aren't my landing pages getting me anything, why aren't my blogs generating stuff, all right, let's take a look at your SEOs. Let's take a look at your strategy. Let's take a look at your wording, at your briefing, at your ads, social media, etc. And then we start to optimize that language and fix it and make sure that the results keep on going after. So there will be a requirement from your LSP at pretty much each stage, but it depends who are you speaking to. So if you're in the research and planning, you need somebody who can consult you at a strategic level. So you're speaking to a consultant, a business development manager, a strategy manager, etc. While you go to the implementation optimization, that's where you need to start to look at the technical side of the LSPs. So you need to start sitting down with the customer success managers, with the operation managers to understand how are they implementing this, what are they considering for optimization, gather feedback from the client on their experience. And that's where you start to see the difference moving forward in your strategy.
Yeah.
Yep, makes sense. Like a partner throughout each stage, really, an extension. I would see it as an extension to my marketing team. Instead of me carrying out that research to enter a new market and doing the planning and implementation and then content optimization, I have an extended team working with me and consulting me. Would you say that?
I like to say it's more of a subject matter expert rather than just.
I like that too. Yeah.
So if you think about it, if you come to Tarjama at any time and you ask help in the research or planning, we're going to send you our guys that are in the strategy and consultation department.
Okay.
Those are the SMEs. Those are the subject matter experts that understand the market and want to help you there. While if you are already at the implementation stage, we'll send you towards our client success managers and towards our operation team leaders who are more than capable of showing you the how. Or sorry, when you were referring to it, the translation was the what in this case, correct? So they're going to be I'll be showing you the how, and my colleagues will be showing you the what in this case. And based on both information, you can keep a cycle going. So even if you're at optimization, it's very normal for any company to jump back to research. All right, we did it.
And I think that's
the first time. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think that's where it's important to make sure that you plan properly, just so that you know what kind of partner do I need.
Yeah, and would you say like that every company you would recommend they would come to you for or an LSP, not you, but an LSP for localization strategy, or when is the right time? Or that question that we were discussing in the agenda, like when do I go to a freelancer versus building my own in-house team versus resorting to a partner or an industry expert? So
yeah, I mean,
it's a big question.
It is a big question. I'll try to keep it brief because I'm conscious I want to keep some space for questions. And I think the audience can start posting any questions that they have even now as well. I think if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So a lot of times, again, if you jump straight into the implementation and say, I'm going to do this project by hiring 3 freelancers to do it, or by working on an LSP, you might end up overspending or delaying the project or risking it completely. So one of the things that is important is to understand your content volume. If it's medium, large, small, medium, project-based, then see what is suitable there. Your localization needs, is it more of a consistent need? Is it something that I know won't exceed a certain capacity, or is it just a temporary one-off thing? And you can see that if I know, for example, I have consistent needs, the best and most optimal model is to actually go for a localization partner versus an in-house team. And this is actually something that is a huge myth within the industry, is that if you have more or less consistent monthly content, it's best to have an in-house team. No, it isn't, because the number of times we have partners who say, I just had a translator resign, and I don't know what to do, but I don't have a partner who understands me and haven't been working with me for years, is a fairly risky process. From a cost perspective, there's a lot of hidden costs for an in-house team. There's a lot of savings in dealing with freelancers. Having a partner that can help you, particularly if they also have localization technology, so they can save you on translation memories, repetitions, build your own custom machine translation as well. It's fairly important. Data privacy and security is something you have to consider. Am I sharing clients' data? And if so, then I'm definitely putting freelancers off the menu. And then I want to see and assess what security qualifications do these customers have? Am I going to take my client data and send it through email to a partner, and then suddenly a freelance translator takes that, downloads it, and does it somewhere as well? And then looking at also my time. How many resources do I have? Do I have the time to manage an in-house team? If I don't have the time, the easiest way is to outsource. If I have a lot of time on my hand and cost is really the highest one, I'd recommend dealing with a group of freelancers. And then what's the nature of the need? Are you going to need something 24/7? Because because a freelancer might be very cost effective, but it might risk the project continuity. An in-house team will work during working hours. So there are a lot of pros and cons for each model that helps a lot with selecting what is it that you want to go for.
I would like to point out the biggest pro of all when you take a look at these, let's call them ingredients, because you can literally mix them up, Noor. You can get a group of freelancers, and you can get a technology, the TMS or any sort of localization technology to manage them. Because if you don't manage them that way, although you did mention it's lower cost, but you're just mentioning direct cost. You have to take into consideration the time spent in managing those freelancers. That is indirect cost for you as a manager or somebody who's leading the team. In addition, we have seen a tremendous trend lately in the market, specifically in the GCC market, where they're looking for what we call a secondment service, which is pretty much, we want your translators in my company, in my office. So it's like a mix between an in-house team and a localization partner, where he doesn't have to worry about the headache. He only has to worry about paying the money, and everybody will be moving it forward. But at the same time, they're my team. They're sitting in front of me, they're sitting with me, and they give pretty much the same quality or the same outputs in all of the pros from both sides. So it's like a win-win situation.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I love the point that you mentioned around, like, yeah, a freelancer is lower in cost, of course, and lower commitment as well. But just not having that technology, unless you do have it and they're operating on it, but that technology will save you indirect costs that the freelancer wouldn't. So over time, if you have consistent localization needs, like, it will start loading up and actually costing more. But if you don't have consistent localization needs, then yeah, freelancer is the way to go. You don't really need to leverage technology if you just have a few social media captions every few weeks.
Yeah, I mean, it also depends on the sensitivity of your situation, because like, in the sense that what happens if your company needs a content piece localized or translated and they can't get it? If the answer is all hell will break loose, then you need to hold someone accountable. It's best outsourced to a team that you can push back. If there's something wrong with the dialect or the quality, they can send it back straight away.
Yeah. Okay, so let's end on this last point of discussion, and then we can see if anyone has any questions. And feel free, everyone, to just put in those questions in the comments, and we can answer them right after this last point. I just wanted to leave the audience off on this note. Like, are there any common mistakes that, people should be aware of when they're building or setting their localization strategy? So what are those things that come to mind out of your experience in talking with a lot of companies interested in localization?
First, in my opinion, people thinking that content is cheap. Proper content, localized content, directed content that is related directly to your strategy is something that shouldn't be ignored. It should have its own budget. It should be represented by a whole team. It's not just, hey, I would like to translate some documents. No, it's a complete strategy. Once people once companies start to understand the importance of this, they will be able to pretty much, it's like this is set. You need to replace is just a translation mentality, and you need them to understand that this is part of the company's growth, and it deserves every penny and every effort we're putting in to make it happen. That's my opinion, at least from the cost perspective, being the guy in the market the most. But at the same time, one of the major issues is people tend to resist the new technology, the new era of localization. It is still stuck in their head. No, why should I buy this? Why should I Why should I invest now in something that they would consider as a secondary service again, which is a translation? And third most important one, and this I also face a lot, is not having proper guidelines. If you don't have the proper guidelines to what you're looking for, you'll end up rushing the process. You'll end up thinking only about the price or thinking about the dialect that you're using. You're not thinking strategically ahead of how is this going to be, let's say, beneficial to you as a company. And you also need to consider, and this is one of my favorite lines, is that your LSP is not just a vendor. He's technically your partner, because if we do a good job, then this is bringing you in, like we mentioned at the start, more money. It's bringing you better success, more markets to open. So I will continue that job with you across the years. So the minute you stop looking at LSPs as vendors and you start evaluating them as partners, I believe this is where you start seeing success in your localization strategy.
I agree. I'd echo and add to what Mahmoud said is, I think the biggest mistake in my view is not seeing the role of localization as a strategic role. A lot of times it is seen as the bottom of the food chain. We're just here to receive content and translate content and do as done. We're just executors. And I think it's not the case all over the world. Localization managers and heads of localization for some of the biggest multinational companies in the world, they dictate how a product is built. They dictate how marketing runs their campaigns. So if you do your due diligence and your research and your planning, rise up to a more strategic localization role as well. And I'll echo also what Mahmoud said on selecting a language provider versus a localization partner. You're investing time and money and effort. Do your due diligence, do your research, ask these organizations, which translation technologies are you using? Where are you getting them from? Who has built them? What happens if your supplier shuts your access? How do you vet your talents? What certifications do you have? I need client references, not a list of logos. I need to speak to existing clients, because translation is a fairly ad hoc process. So I could translate one page for Coca-Cola, and Coca-Cola is my client. Great. I need to speak to them. I want to know how their experience is. Did you translate this page for them 7 years ago, or are they an existing client of yours? And finally is, do not resist technologies. Like, a lot of times we have companies who say, like, no, but we don't want to invest in technologies because we have concerns about safety and our content is data privacy. It's like, really, you're okay sending an email with a sensitive file to an unknown person, but you're not okay uploading it on an online, secure, encrypted platform? Not really sure how to help you.
Allow me to add one more to that. No, thank you. I don't want Google Translate.
Yeah.
That is the most...
Not understanding that Google Translate is Google Translate. Then there's a whole universe of language technologies that are fairly advanced, customized machine translations, etc. So yeah, and just start with understanding that there's a lot that can be done. Let's try to get a consultation. Reach out to someone and say, I'd like a consultation, and then you'll be able to tell if this is a language provider or a localization partner.
Yeah, I love that.
I agree. Yeah.
100%. Okay, so we have one question from, let's get into the Q&As. We already have one question from Ayat. Ayat is asking, can a non-experienced translator in a certain region easily be considered to work on a project from that region? So in other words, will having in-depth research skills be sufficient to be chosen for that specific project? So that's from a translator's point of view. I believe that question is coming.
Yep.
Mahmoud, go ahead.
Yeah. Let me start by saying it might be a challenge, but it doesn't mean that you can't do it, because at the end of the day, the essence of translation is you knowing your stuff, you being a subject matter expert. So if you're up to date with everything that's going on in the world, if you're up to date to specific glossaries and dictionaries that are available all over the internet, if you keep on understanding how translation technology works, it would require some effort from your end. But I can tell you from experience, I've seen a lot of translators that are completely from a different region, yet they shine in the other region. So yes, it is doable, but you need to do your job. You need to do your homework, your research, to keep on learning, keep on educating yourself on everything that is out there.
And I think it's also about the content type, because a lot of times it's not a regional specific content. I mean, if you want legal translation, that's a domain specific project. There's a much higher chance that this translator would be selected, even if they're not from the region, if they have that particular part. But I think, Ayat, to your question, one of the most important things that a lot of our tech team and board and advisors always see is we need to start looking ahead as to what is the future of a translator role. So 10, 15, I don't know, 50 years ago, accountant's role was to use a calculator and look at a sheet and just do the math and calculate that role. Excel sheets and software didn't replace the need for accountants. It just made the accountant's role a bit more strategic. So now they can do a couple of calculations on Excel or so on. Now computer softwares for data analysis is not making the role of the accountant redundant. It's making them evolve into something else. So as a translator as well, one of the best things is to invest in training yourself as being, technology or machine translation post-editor, because this is where the world is going to look like. Translation technology is improving so much that it's used in most translation jobs as a way to speed up the process. At the end of the day, it's about the quality of the editor or the translator themselves doing the edits to give it that human output part.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah. Thanks, Noor and Mahmoud. So Samar is asking, the transcript done on the fly at the webinar is through Tarjama tool. I'm not sure if you're referring to the transcript regarding the description, that is only in English. So no, that did not require translation for us. But for our marketing content, yeah, we usually do use the Tarjama tool. We use a lot of MTPE, where we use machine translation, and then post-editing, where linguists go over the machine translated content, and they really zoom into the creative parts where the bulk is done through the tool, and then they can focus more on perfecting and making the content creative and even a little bit transcreated in some areas. So I hope that answers your question. And we have another question around what are some technological tools currently. Sorry, oh yeah, that's it. So yeah, some of the technological tools, the most current ones, I believe, related to translation.
I need more than 2 minutes, but so I'll try to.
You have other questions?
I'll try to make it short. Right now, AI is king. Data is king. So if you need to focus on any specific technology, try to find the right technology that provides you with multiple elements. And to better explain this, there are translation management tools out there translation technology, out there that provides one service over the other. But at the same time, there are many out there that provide literally everything that you need throughout the process, all the way from the research to the last place of implementation. So this is a very wide area, and I'm happy to answer it in more details. If privately, feel free to email me or message me on LinkedIn if you prefer, and I'm more than happy to walk you through it.
Yeah, and I think just like as a summary from the localization strategy as well, you probably want to consider machine translation, not Google Translate, something that's not crowdsourced, something that is built for purpose, something built for e-commerce or legal, etc., you probably want to consider translation management systems and something that actually has very good sub-tools within, document analysis, domain finder, spell checkers, etc. Potentially also OCR, optical character recognition, so that you can fix the pain of images being converted to text and otherwise. Data handoff tools, so platforms that allow you to quickly hand off data to customers, track your progress, track your project, report it back, securely download and upload. Automatic speech recognition if you're doing subtitling as well, something that can help you manage your video content much faster as well. And I'm sure Mahmoud can give you a lot more details as well.
I think we have, if we can just cover one last question, and then if any questions we haven't covered, we can post the answers on our LinkedIn page or even in the comments here. But just one last question from Rodion, if I'm pronouncing that right, sorry if I'm not. Would, in your opinion, a local LSP be a better choice of a localization partner?
That's a good question, Rodion. I'll tell you my thoughts, and Mahmoud, you can keep me honest or correct me if I'm wrong. The entire language industry is a large connected network. Doesn't matter who you are reaching out to. If you need to localize content from Mandarin to Portuguese, if you're dealing with the largest localization partner in the world, but they're based out of the UK, they will not have translators or translation experts from these pairs. So the question is, if I understood it correctly, am I better off going to a provider in China or in Brazil or Portugal because they'll have that experience, or should I still work with my localization partner as well? I think the answer there is, what setup does your partner offer? Because if it's just a matter of, here's my document, can we please get it localized or translated, versus we're trying to make sure that we invest in translation memories to build repetitions, to get discounts on a year-by-year basis, then it's better off to make sure that you have one partner, and this partner should showcase to you that they have experience in these languages as well. So when you're planning, it helps to know what languages am I going to likely need, and then pick a partner and then let them do that interconnection. There isn't a localization or LSP anywhere in the world that wouldn't be able to offer you pretty much any language in the world, because it's a partnership-based model. They'll have partners everywhere, etc. The question is, do they have infrastructure and experience in managing such projects?
I completely agree. And if I'm to add one more point, always going with somebody that works within your time zone will always be a positive thing. Even if you're requesting a language that is completely on the other side of the globe, because at the end of the day, you need someone to support you and be there with you in the time of your business, rather than responding to you 8 or 9 hours later.
Or even better, 24/7, right?
24/7, 100%. Well, you told me not to brag, so I'm keeping my mouth quiet.
Okay, thank you so much to Noor and Mahmoud and to all the audience members here. I really enjoyed this from my part.
Thank you, Emmy. That was fun. I enjoyed it too.
Yeah, it was.
Yep, absolutely.
We're going to have our recording on our LinkedIn page, so watch out for that. You can watch it again at any point. And we'll also post some resources in the comment section a bit later tonight. And stay tuned for our upcoming episodes of this localization series. This was just the kickoff, and we're going to continue that in the coming months. So follow us on LinkedIn and stay tuned. Thank you, everyone. Hope you enjoyed it.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Emmy. Thank you, Mahmoud.
Bye-bye.